Welcome back. Beginnings. Hi. Uh, we're the gaming booth. Theme music.
If you guys don't know who we are, well, neither do we.
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year!
You're
Happy
aware I'm
birthday,
cutting
new
all of that
beer.
out for the theme music. And imagine that it's epic. Yes. Imagine that theme music. And the trumpet. And the trumpet. I sound like Lou Bega. The trumpet.
Bum 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 bum.
That
All right.
totally just sounded like a song from Aladdin.
It was.
Shows what you know. Yes, we are here to discuss things, and you're going to listen to us discuss things. We have a girl, so you can sit there and jerk it if you want.
And we have also disabled the pause button.
Oh, wait. And for their enjoyment, pleasure instead of normal voice, I'll totally go into like hipster girl voice if it totally makes you feel better. Yeah, I can't do that for very long. I'm going to
If you
shoot
do
myself.
that,
Yes, and we have someone sitting in the corner sucking his
I'd
Well,
thumb.
we
rather shoot
could.
myself than talking that for a very long time. Yeah, not happening. Sorry.
Like, totally.
Like, oh my God.
All right, let's jump into
Eddie,
discussion
you
before
do
we
that voice
spend
for
the
the
first
entire,
5
for that entire
minutes
podcast.
talking about stupid stuff.
no.
We
Wait,
don't
isn't
need
that
this.
how the first 5 minutes always goes, though?
Isn't that how the whole podcast always goes?
Pretty much.
I'm killing you all.
Wait,
Oh,
we
you
may need
do
a
it
jump
at the
cut
end of
because
every
we didn't.
podcast.
Wait, we may
Well,
need a
okay,
jump
not
cut.
all of you.
Well,
Marky
someone
lives,
listen to me.
Felicity
we
Ryan, blah.
Yes. We may need to do a jump cut because we didn't introduce ourselves, and if this is the
No introduction. Moving on.
To be
Shall
Talk
fair,
about
I never give an
Sony.
All
introduction,
are.
so
We shall talk
I-
about Sony.
My
People
name
will
will be
learn
there
who we
forever.
are when we refer to each other. All right.
that sounds like a very bad idea, Jen.
Yeah, I'm full of them. Yeah. Talking about Sony, very bad idea. But yeah, the current waves that are being made in the gaming waters is that Sony is looking for a patent on a technology that would allow them to, if you have a disc, they could put an RF tag on it so that when you slip it into your game console or DVD player, it says, okay, this person owns this disc, so this disc cannot be used in any other player but this one.
really,
Well, Eddie, that sounds like a really bad idea.
it really is.
Well, I'm going to say why I don't think it's a bad idea. If they take I don't think this is meant for gaming, because when you look through their patent stuff, they only mention games once, whereas most of the time they're referring to it as interactive medium. I don't think they're going for games, for something I will explain later. I think they're going for Blu-ray movies to keep people from, going out and buying a movie, watching it, lending it to their friends, who will then lend it to their friends. Everyone will watch it, and it'll only be paid for once. Whereas with games, we have something in gaming now that I think doesn't give them as much of a good reason to do this to us. And here's my reason. Almost every mainstream game you see that comes out now has DLC. So even if you go and buy a copy used, you're still good chance you're going to go out and buy the DLC. And when's the last time you saw a DLC that was worth what you paid for it?
Exactly.
Actually, I would have to say that there are some that I've found that were worth what I paid for, but they're few and far between. It's not every single DLC that's worth the amount that you pay.
Yeah, because here's a good example. Skyrim, very popular. Pay $60 for Skyrim, and it might be the last game you ever need. And then you've got Skyrim's Dawnguard DLC, $20. That is 1/3 of the game, of what you paid for the game, and it's only got, what, 10 new missions in it, a couple new weapons, you get a crossbow, some new vampires. Nowhere near as 1/3 of what Skyrim is as a whole.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So yeah, I don't see, people are crying to the heavens with this. I don't see them putting this on us yet because they don't have a reason to.
Yeah, and the fact that any company who would do this would essentially be slitting their throats. They're done.
No, I don't actually see that either. I think that's a radical opinion. Hey, interesting new name for the podcast. Radical opinion. Um,
Welcome to the Kazakhstan Gaming Podcast.
but the reason is because people vote with their wallets with these companies like these, and yes, it kind of seems like they'd be slitting their throats, but I don't see this as the reason, because you've got the Sony fanboys who would, no matter what Sony does, they'll buy a PS4, and let's say Microsoft and Nintendo buy this technology off of them. You now have all of the console people using this technology. Are you going to stop gaming, or are you going to give in? Most people are going to give in. There's going to be some people that have principles, and they're not going to buy any more games from these companies. They'll either start playing free games, or they'll find another hobby. But most people are going to give in.
Now, here's the thing. I'll argue devil's advocate on that one. If they decide to run this sort of thing, just kind of like run into the test market, and it doesn't do as well for Sony, do you think Microsoft and Nintendo are going to go, that's not the best idea? Or, that's a great idea. Let's buy it up.
Well, you got to look. If one person's doing it, no, it's not the best idea. But what if there's a monopoly, like everyone's doing it? Like I said, then there's not really a reason for them not to take a slice of the pie.
No, I think they're probably going to end up doing it if for no other reason they try to kill the used game industry, because they've been after that for years.
My thing is, if they do that, I'll keep the games that I currently have that don't have those tags in them. The games that they currently have out on the market won't have those tags in them. So I'll still be able to get more for my system. I won't be buying any new games for my consoles, though, because I have a gaming PC. I'll just buy everything on my PC and play it there and stop using consoles. Because if they have an RFID tag in something where I'm not going to be able to trade it in and trade towards another game that may be from their company as well, so I'm trading it in to spend more money and give them more money, so to speak. What's the incentive for me to do something like that? Because I'm still spending the same amount of money according to them, according to their bottom line. I'm just reselling that game personally to put towards purchasing the new game that just came out less than 24 hours ago, let's say.
And essentially, by doing this, they will basically stifle new IPs, because people will no longer want to experiment with new IPs, because if they do, they're stuck with a game that they might not like.
Mm-hmm. True enough. True enough. Though the thing I will take against the PC argument, I have a gaming PC too, but the problem with us is we're already stuck in this situation. You buy a game on PC, it's yours. You can't trade it in. You're stuck with it. So we've already got that ball and chain, which is why I say I don't actually think this would hurt them as much as Bulb first suggested, because people would adapt to it. And yeah, that's the thing, is definitely on PC, people do not take risks on new IP unless it costs less money, like the Torchlight games. Like Torchlight 2 is the competitor of Diablo 3. It has not sold nearly as many copies of Diablo 3, but it is $20, so there's a reason to try it out.
Yeah, but it's like...
My thing is that no matter what, it will hurt the gaming industry. Now, they might recover from it, but it will hurt them in the short run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I don't disagree, but I don't think that will stop them from doing it, because especially Sony is really big on not creating new IP, but exploiting its old IP. You got your Metal Gears, your Final Fantasies, your Uncharted's. They're fine with running those into the metaphorical ground.
And the thing is, I'll be honest about this current generation that we're exiting out of, and this will be the same for the next generation, is as far as... I'm going to have a hard time with better games, but there's a reason why I'm going to be saying it. As far as better overall packages of games, the last generation was better. And the reason I say that is no longer do you have a game that comes out and it is complete in the package, all the bugs are worked out, it's good as is. Now in this generation, your games of the years are buggy as crap. Pretty much, unless you get unless you download the patches for the games are essentially unplayable. That would not have flown in previous generations. It flies in this generation because you have to have your system connected to the internet 24/7 now.
See,
So what happens is, when this generation moves on, is you're going to have a lot of games that will stop being playable unless you've already downloaded the content, unless you've already downloaded the patches. The games by themselves are not as good, are not as complete as games in previous console generations where they had to be complete or everyone would recognize them as the bullcrap that they were.
And now that Grandpa Bulba is finished shaking his walking stick, going to move on to another type of stick, my favorite type of stick, the Kickstarter stick. Everyone loves
Lord.
Kickstarter. It brings us fun things. In the past, we've talked about the Ouya, the homebrew gaming console that's coming up. Here, we're talking about the Gamestick. Now, I'm sure no one here has heard of this thing, possibly Felicity. The Gamestick was launched 4 days ago on Kickstarter. They wanted $100,000 in revenue, and in 4 days, they have about $215,000 last time I checked. So yeah, they've easily doubled in just 4 days, and they still have 26 days to go. What this thing is it's an Android-based game console, so Android phone operating system. And the idea is you get a controller, like a game, you get a gamepad, and there's a little thing in the bottom. You pull it out, and it's a memory stick. You take that, plug it into the HDMI port of your TV, and done. That's the setup. It connects to your controller via Bluetooth, so you play your console on your TV. And yeah, from the looks of it, 1 gigabyte of DDR3 memory, so 1 gig of RAM, 8 gigabytes of storage with Wi-Fi. So connect to your thing, download Android apps to your little memory stick. I think this is really cool.
I have to give it this because I actually not exactly saw too much information on it, but I saw this little demonstration this morning when I was watching a Rev3 Games video with Adam Sussler and 2 other folks.
I'm always used to Morgan Webb being said after Adam Sussler.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard not to say that anymore. But I saw this being looked at, and they were discussing this being one of those things where we're going to be seeing new consoles coming out, this possibly being one of them coming out this year. My thing is with this is that I don't know how much it's going to cost.
$79.
$79? What games are going to be able to play with it?
Anything you would be able to play on an Android. So pretty much things like iPhone games, like small things, like it's not going to be a powerhouse. You're not going to see any AAA games, but if you're looking for something like possibly retro style games, like things that are based on the old Mario games, the old Sonic games, or possibly even ports of the old Mario and old Sonic games.
Okay, so basically you're giving me a full version console with
That fits in your pocket.
That fits in your pocket that I can play some old games, maybe even some small indie games like, maybe even Angry Birds, because you mentioned phone games. So Angry Birds, things like Words with Friends. There's another game that's on there on phones right now that's really hot and popular. I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Minecraft?
Yeah, Minecraft even. You can play it on your phone too. But you can play this for $79.99.
Yeah.
Most game companies nowadays, they're going to be releasing their big AAA consoles right now, probably for about $300 to $400, possibly even more, depending on what's all going to be in the big, humongous flipping package. You're essentially looking at both ends of this spectrum market and going, I can get this tit for tat, so to speak. And if this company that's actually making this, if they're going to make it to where you can expand upon that 8 gigabytes and be able to buy more memory and be able to plug it into your TV and be able to store more shit on your memory disk or your memory freaking stick, since it's going to be USB port. Hello, there's a huge market here to be had. For indie developers, even those big name developers that just want to be able to release something really small and just throw it into the market. Like, Shadowrun Complex. Wait a minute, Shadowrun. Crap. I think it might have been Shadowrun Complex. I know it was a freaking UE3 game right now. But if you want to be like that indie developer like Square Enix that wants to throw in a UE4 game on this, you can. If you want to be a
Did you just call Square Enix an indie developer?
Wow.
not an indie developer, but you know, an off branch of Square Enix. Shush, my brain and tongue are kind of like not working together.
Are they ever?
Obviously.
No,
Yeah, I see a lot of potential in this. Just like the Ouya, like this isn't a homebrew console, so it's not direct competition for the Ouya. But I see like $80. This is a good novelty to have. You can take it to a friend's house. Like I said, it fits in your pocket. The the console itself slots right into the controller.
also we could see like a Steam box that's possibly coming out as well, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, with Steam's, we'll have to talk about that at a later date.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like this. If anything, just to show that crowdsourcing really works in situations like this. If people want something, they're going to get it.
Yeah.
Now, moving on to something that should have been, this was on Indiegogo, same vein as Kickstarter. Didn't happen. This one kind of saddens me because it kind of shows you the dark side of crowdsourcing, because when you're crowdsourcing something, you're paying for something you want. And people really should have wanted this, and it did not get its funding. They wanted $16,000. They were only able to get $4,000 for this. And it was a company called Media Rights. Now, what they do is they were trying to start up so that they could give, they could help out indie developers. Because when you're developing an indie game, people think it doesn't cost much because it's just one or two people working in an office to squirt out a game. But you've still got to put the time in. You're paying for yourself to live. You've got to pay certification fees. You've got to pay legal fees, and all of this stuff. Making an indie game the cost of it can really pile up. And this company was going to try and alleviate that by paying or giving free legal help to indie developers. But they didn't reach their goal, and this really is sad because there are so many devs out there who could have helped from this. There's so many developers who could have just got off the ground by using a service like this. And I'm not sure if they're going to go somewhere else to get their funding. I hope they do. I hope this company gets off the ground, but that they couldn't get the crowd-funded source for the money for this is deeply sad to me. Because people talk about loving the indie developer, yet when the indie developer needs them, piss off is essentially what they get.
I'm worried about our indie community because of situations like that. Just because there's a lot of startup companies, and we're seeing a lot more startup game developers that are coming out. And with the indie community, more people are like, oh, I don't really care. Like I still browse like the indie games on Steam, indie games on Xbox and everything. And it's that you see a lot less people buying from them. And, you know, there's game developers, if I could talk, there are game developers that are smaller that not a lot of people have heard of that are making it big, like Telltale Games. I had heard things about them before The Walking Dead came out, but I hadn't really heard anything big on things that they had worked on that were huge, major projects. And then The Walking Dead game came out, and it won Game of the Year, and it won a shit ton of other awards at the VGAs because of just how invested people got. And it's kind of shocking to see something like that, but it's like, if you make a fantastic game in the indie community, you have a 50-50 chance of getting noticed or getting ignored. And it's really dependent upon the gaming base on how much they buy of it in order for all of that to work out.
Kind of like a word of mouth situation, to where it's if people are talking about your game and they're talking highly of your game, like the newest game that I know that just came out recently, Journey. It's more of an artistic game more than anything. I know it's only 3 hours long, but the game itself, from what I've seen of it, is artistically just beautifully amazing. And it's one of those, if people are really talking about your game, like Minecraft, that got around really big because of word of mouth and because it's so fun and it's a sandbox. The Walking Dead game, that game gets around because of winning awards and being able to get word of mouth. Dishonored, that game is an indie game getting released at the end of a, well, not an indie game, but it's a game that gets released at the end of a console cycle.
Eddie, you're getting your indie developers mixed up with the real
I know.
developers.
I know.
Well, that's not fair. Indie developers are real developers. He's getting his
Well,
indie
okay,
developers
bigger
mixed
developers.
up with AAAs.
I'm getting
Yeah, I see two problems with when it comes to the being recognized thing is let's go to the creator of the game Fez. That game is really well known. It was really well known throughout its development cycle, but that was actually one of the major problems the developer there had was his game was so well known that he knew if he didn't actually complete it, then he would probably never work in the industry again because that stigma would follow him around. You can actually watch Indie Game the movie, and they asked him what he would have done if he couldn't have finished Fez, and he said he would have killed himself. And I actually kind of believe him because in a situation like that, if something happens and you can't complete the game, your reputation's going to be tarnished. You're not going to be able to work in something you love, and it's going to be hard. But yeah, the indie community needs support, and I support them as much as I can. In fact, my Steam library has probably 200 games, and I'd bet 120 of them are indie games, just because the if an indie game has quality, you can tell how much work was put into it. Whereas a AAA game, they can polish over. If they decide to get lazy with it, they can still make it look good. Just polish it.
The thing is, even with AAA games, like now, I have to use this one as an example because it pissed me off. Assassin's Creed 3, that game is buggy. And it's one of those things to where if you've got a AAA game that's coming out and it's buggy as hell, and you've got an indie developer or indie game that's coming out and it's, looking more polished and a lot more refined than your AAA titles, you've got some major comeuppance you need to fix there.
Yeah. Speaking of comeuppance that needs to be fixed, let's move on to the War Z. Now, most people have heard of DayZ. They've probably heard of War Z thanks to the controversy. The idea is it's a zombie game with you explore. You start off with nothing. You have to find a weapon to defend yourself, and you just got to try and survive as long as possible. It's a new emergent genre. It's a lot of people are starting to like it.
Zombie U.
Yes. Well, no, it's not Zombie U at all.
I'm just saying, though, there's another example you can throw in there with Zombie U.
Yeah, but
Zombie
I think,
U is nothing like that.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Zombie U doesn't hold the attempt at realism as much. But the problem with War Z we're going to be talking about here is the false advertising controversy, because this game appeared on Steam and they were selling this as a finished product. That was their thing over DayZ. They're like, well, DayZ is still in development, but we have the War Z here, which is a finished product. Come and buy this from us, and boom. The problem with that is it was still in beta. The game is not finished. And the things they had on that store page were false. Like they said they had a map that was between 100 kilometers and 400 kilometers, and very recently, I believe it was I think it was Gamasutra or one of the other sites did a thing. They surveyed it, and the map is about 10 to 15 kilometers. So not nearly as big as they said it was, and they were claiming that their servers could have up to 100 people on a server at the same time playing together, when in reality it was about 40. So they were making all of these boasts about things they had, reasons you should buy their games, and they were false. But that doesn't annoy me as much. Like, the developers kind of annoy me, but what annoys me is the fans of the War Z, who are getting out there and attacking people for criticizing the game. We might see it here. They'll be like, oh, the servers can hold that many people. You're just on a bad server, or you don't know how large the map is, yada, yada, yada. if you're getting out there and disputing a fact to get more people to play your game, you are a despicable person. You are lying to people, making them spend their money on a product that is not finished just for your own ego or for your own um, to either justify your purchase or whatever. And you should feel bad about that. That is wrong. What the hell is wrong with you?
I also believe it's kind of illegal to sell something if you're not, if you're
Well,
lying about the actual product
Yeah,
itself.
it
Yeah.
actually is.
Yeah, that's the
Um,
problem here.
and as far as the fans, I mean, I understand liking a company, I understand liking a product, but if there's problems with it, and it's been proven that there's problems with it, you need to man up. It's like, yeah, there's problems with it. I still kind of like it, but you have to admit that there are problems, and you have to stop defending against what is clearly problems. And I'll give an example that we used in a previous podcast, if it ever gets up, was the whole whole Sega Shining Force debacle.
Hmm.
I like Sega. I was a Sega fan, but I could not look at what Sega was doing, and I could not defend Sega on what they were clearly doing and spitting in the eyes of their fans. And the people who did, it's like, you need to get a grip. This is really happening. Giving excuse after excuse after excuse after been proven as that's not the case.
It's one of those things to where, as I know Jen doesn't like the quote-unquote fanboy effect, I think that's where you're getting at with, this. They have these fanboys who have their heads shoved so far into their own cavities, saying that, oh, you're on a bad server, that's not true, yada, yada, yada.
Well, here's an interesting point I want to bring up, and Felicity will know a lot about this, is how much money they pay to people just to get out there and provide good word for that. Like, they hire people to, like, big companies like Nintendo, Microsoft, Sega. There are people who are making a good salary to get out there and give good word of mouth to their games. They're getting out there, they're giving interviews, they're yada, yada, yada. And then how much of a boon is it to not have to pay that money to thousands of people who are going to go out there and lie on your behalf? I mean, as a game company, you gotta love this. Like, this is not good for the consumer, but the game companies relish this, as you call it, my fanboy effect. Because they don't have to pay these people, and these people are going to say what they want said, and it drives me up the wall.
See, I can use another example right now. I know that Felicity, you and I have a little bit of a closer connection to this. It's the new Gears of War Judgment game that's going to come out. Epic is essentially gutting the game, so to speak. They are taking out core concepts in their game, Up, Down, But Not Out, and the Locust being on the multiplayer side of things. Granting, I'm someone who is indifferent. I could care less because it's one of those things where I'm wanting to buy this game and have fun and support them because I enjoy playing Gears of War. But you have fans who are adamant and rabid and just extremely distraught about these changes that, with word of mouth, this game could potentially, if people don't know about it, go...
I don't know that if there's anyone that doesn't know about Gears of War, honestly. Yeah,
there are some people who don't, to be honest. At my job, I've been like, well, have you heard of Gears of War coming out? Because they're like, I want something that's kind of like Halo, but kind of like, I want a third person kind of look. And so I always do that. They're like, what is that? I've never even heard of it. And
That's
so like I've
surprising.
showed them the series, and they've bought all three and come back to like pre-order Judgment because they're like, this is so fantastic. I don't know why I didn't know about this. And it's the thing, they really are gutting the game compared to last time. They're taking out some of the features that made Gears unique. We're all hoping that they change their minds because it'll change it. It'll change the experience for these people who have been fans of this game since the beginning. So
yeah, as I've said, you got to vote with your money. If you don't like the changes they're making, don't buy the game. Because if you still buy the game, even though you don't like their changes, you're giving them your $60 thumbs up to say, hey, good job, go do more. It's why for a there have been plenty of games I've boycotted. I ended up getting a copy of Mass Effect 3 as a gift, but yeah, that was one of the games. Like I did not like the decisions they made, and I was not going to buy a copy. And I'm a bit of a hypocrite because I accepted it as a gift. So we all have our price, I guess. For me, it's free.
Free is an amazing price.